Hello and welcome to Autocar Spotlight, where we're going to be delving into key topics in the automotive industry. I'm Zaran, I have with me Rahul, and we're going to get the ball rolling tonight with a topic that's on everyone's tongues and minds at the moment, and that is India's EV landscape. It's this field where you've got big players throwing punches, and the battleground that they're throwing these punches in are these new mobility expos that we're seeing. And in our own home market at the Bharat Mobility Expo 2025, we saw a new entrant this time, didn't we?
Of course, talking about the new entrant VinFast, that really caught our attention while there were not a lot of new unveilings. These guys had some really nice models on display, and those were really interesting, and you were there personally. What did you think of them?
Right, we did have the opportunity to get like a touch and feel example of these cars, and they had everything from the global lineup, starting from the smaller VF3, VF5. They had the two models that are the ones planned for their India debut. There's the VF6, VF7, and then some of their higher lineup as well, the VF8, VF9. Right. It was nice to be able to see the fit and finish of the cars on display, very futuristic looking, really a great first impression. And we also had the opportunity to stick around for the public days of the show and then interact with the general public that was at the venue and ask them what their first impressions were. And honestly, most of the public was quite wowed by the designs, really just that first look impression that you get from these cars, and the features list on them. So I would say all in all, a pretty solid first impression at the Bharat Mobility Expo.
They were quite impressive, yes.
Yeah. And I think that solid first impression from the public is really a sign of the times. The times being, this seems like a really opportune moment to be entering the EV space in India.
Absolutely, I agree. Right now, things are booming. EV landscape is expanding. This is the right time, and they've made the right move at the right time.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into who VinFast really is.
So VinFast is actually, they come under this conglomerate called Vin Group, and that's actually the largest private conglomerate in Vietnam.
Right.
So they're big players in business and industry, even beyond just EVs. So of course, VinFast is their EV arm through which they do electric cars, motorcycles and scooters. But then they also have VinGreen, which is focused on EV charging infrastructure, primarily in Southeast Asia.
Right.
Beyond that, they've got GSM, which is a ride-hailing service, also all EV. They've got FG, which is an EV leasing service, so a lot in this EV ecosystem. And then finally, they've also got VinBus, which is a non-profit electric bus service, something that I think India could actually stand to learn from.
Well, that goes to show that these guys are not only one-off EV car manufacturer, but they're also building a whole ecosystem with EVs. And going back to 2018, when they started producing only ICE cars and quickly realizing the market's shifting towards EVs, and they pivoted to EVs. So that's really fantastic.
Also, even for their India entry now, they're coming in all electric, and they're coming in not at the top end of the range, neither at the bottom end of the range. I think they've got a good reading of the Indian market, and they're adapting to that as well. So because I think they're a newer, younger company, they seem to be a little more quick on their feet and able to react to what a market demands. You see that also in terms of the feature set that they're giving the Indian cars. And we can in fact start now diving into their Indian entry with these two models, the VF6 and the VF7. All the staple tick boxes that you want for a new car in India today. Yes, it's electric. Yes, it's got things like ADAS. You've got your panoramic sunroofs. You've got a lot of these advanced features that people, look for in a car these days. And they've also got pretty decent power, torque, acceleration figures. So there's some element of thrill and performance there as well. And again, talking about them being quick on their feet, you could see that even in the Bharat Mobility Show display that they put up.
Yeah.
The pavilion, it was one of the biggest, fanciest, most well-lit pavilions in the entire show, And the sheer number of cars there was pretty incredible. There was not just their global production model lineup, but even concepts. They had that wild concept, the electric pickup truck that really lived up to its name. It was a real attention grabber. It was a real all guns blazing approach.
Like you rightly said, yes, they're really committed to the Indian market. In fact, they're setting up a new plant in Thoothukudi in Tamil Nadu, which will be their only third plant after Vietnam and the US, which will create about 3,500 jobs, commitment to make 150,000 units annually. So it really shows their commitment to the Indian market.
No, they definitely seem serious about the Indian market, and they've chosen to do it in Tamil Nadu, which is now really a well-established auto hub.
That's true.
So another thing I noticed from being on ground at their pavilion is just the one thing you could observe across the entire pavilion is there was a very strong design language, this design family going on across the cars, and they all looked consistently impressive. Everything from that pickup truck concept car that they had to all the production cars, there was this same wow factor across the board. And that's because they have Torino design on board and they're handling the aesthetic for these cars as well. But also just the fact that they've gone down this path of trying to have a design language is a big statement.
It is very impressive. Normally you see legacy manufacturers doing this, where you see a particular design language which flows through the family, through the models, and you see this with VinFast, which is quite impressive.
They're really trying to make an impact. You can see that there's strong intent behind their actions. And also that you see that in the cars that they've chosen for India. Now, if you look at the VF6 and VF7, they're sort of the right size. There are very Asian sensibilities behind these cars. They're designed for compact towns. But you have that nice form factor, but at the same time, the aesthetic, they've got sort of a Euro aesthetic going on in terms of design language as well. So they're marrying a lot of different elements and trying to come up with this concoction for India that they believe should work. And you can see the confidence in these products even in things like the warranty, right?
Yeah, they're offering 10 years of warranty, which in a market like India, where the roads, the infrastructure is all over the place. I mean, the cars go through so much. 10 years of warranty, and Indian customers, where gaining trust of Indian customers not so easy. That's a very bold statement.
So in the long term, I see them trying to gain the trust of Indian customers with things like that 10-year warranty. I think in the moment, they're trying to wow Indian customers. I think the showroom experience that they're setting themselves up for is going to be pretty impressive, because there is instant jaw drop factor with these cars. If you check them out in terms of touch and feel, the designs are impressive, but then also if you eventually go for a test drive, which is something I'm personally quite looking forward to, there are some seriously impressive numbers there as well. The VF6, that's the lower one of them. The Eco variant of that, you're getting 177 horsepower. You put that up to the Plus variant, that's 204 horsepower, 310 Newton meters. Already pretty impressive figures. Once you look at the higher model, the VF7, you can have these powertrain options I just told you about. And then there's a higher all-wheel drive version that gives you 300, upwards of 350 horsepower and 500 Newton meters. So some properly big numbers in terms of performance as well. I think from behind the wheel, these are shaping up to be really exciting cars. So really strong fundamentals, and then you've also got the fancy frills sprinkled on top in terms of the features, right?
Exactly, the features like a panoramic sunroof, there's vegan leather, screens, really large screens in the cars, and level 2 ADAS, given the road conditions like we were talking about earlier. Now the infrastructure is developing, there are better lane markings, better roads everywhere. So obviously we'll be driving on better roads, and these are the features which we'll use in the future. So VinFast is offering that, which is really good.
Absolutely, you know, even projects we've done in the recent past, stuff like the Samruddhi Expressway, driving on that, for example, I think level 2 ADAS is going to become more and more important as we see more of these newer, fancier highways come up, and it's good to see them right off the bat coming out with this impressive feature set. Another one that stood out to me on that brochure was the vegan leather. You know, it's premium yet thoughtful. That I think really speaks about what this brand is trying to position themselves as and what they're trying to be. So I think overall they've got the India formula cooking quite nicely, and I'm really looking forward to see how it gets received by the market.
Yeah, even I'm waiting.
So the VF6 and the VF7 seem like they're really building the case for a strong India debut. But beyond that, some of the other global lineup cars at the expo also piqued my interest quite a bit. The VF3, for example, that's this very compact, rugged city runabout kind of thing. I think it fits in perfectly into the Indian landscape. Would be interesting to see them explore the possibility of introducing that here at some point. The VF8, again, you're looking at a mid-size SUV electric. I think it's got the makings it needs for success in India. What about you? Did anything stand out to you?
Well, the VF9, for example, was really interesting to me because I've read about it. I've seen the pictures from the expo. A 3-row luxury segment car with a lot of top-notch features. So I'm really looking forward to VinFast, you know, getting their global lineup. Even in India. So that'll be really great.
Yeah, no, the VF9, I think I agree as well. It was like a real business class like experience. No, I went and checked it out on ground. It really seemed like a lavish experience. I think, again, something that there is a niche for in India. I think a lot of these global cars that they have in their lineup at future points, they seem like neat fits for the Indian market as well. But of course, to start things off, it's the VF6 and VF7. If they want to bring in more of the outside lineup, that will hinge on their plant.
In fact, the groundbreaking ceremony has already happened. and they're planning on beginning production by the second half of 2025. So they're really moving forward aggressively.
That trait really keeps coming up a lot. They seem agile, they seem able to adapt quite quickly, and I think that's something that's really going to hold them in good stead in the Indian market, because historically ours is a market where we've seen eras of radical regulation changes and manufacturers having to adapt really quickly. True. Now we are at the forefront of things like EVs as well. We see regulations clamping down big time on ICE vehicles. EVs are the next big thing, but regulation in the field of EVs is still sort of taking shape, and being a young, adaptable company, I think is really going to help them in this regard. I think beyond everything we've spoken about, another thing that the brand really has like an ace up its sleeve is the umbrella that it's part of, that we spoke about earlier, this conglomerate, Vin Group. If you look at the other businesses in that group, some of those feel like they're nice shoe-ins for India as well. You talk about Vin Green, that's where they're involved with setting up their own charging infra, which today in India we don't see too many EV manufacturers doing their own infra. There are the odd outliers, but they could be one of the first movers there. More than that, they have the know-how, they've done it across Southeast Asia. It's a matter of implementing it in our conditions, which if they can do for their cars, perhaps they could do for their charging infra as well. EV leasing as well, not something that's very prolific in India yet, but there is some merit to that model. Again, they have a business up and running, FG, which is under the Vin Group. They do EV leasing as well, something that perhaps they could explore for India. So there's a lot of possibilities, there's a lot of strength behind this company because of the conglomerate that it comes from. And I think all of this also makes them poised to align with our climate goals, like you mentioned.
Speaking of the climate goals, of course, India is aiming to go 50% energy coming only from renewable sources by 2030, and by 2070, net zero emissions.
Absolutely.
So, coming to VinFast, of course, they're really aligned with contributing to the Indian green goals.
I think the other one that ties in there is VinBus, what I briefly mentioned earlier. That's a non-profit that they're running where they're electrifying public transportation in their home country. Again, something that we're seeing happen more and more over here. So lots of opportunity on the horizon, and like you said, really tying in with India's climate goals as well.
Yeah, it's a win-win. So to sum up what we've been discussing this evening is VinFast being a global player and having the global exposure and the kind of lineup that they have. And the green approach to offer to the Indian market, that's what the Indian consumer wants, the cars to be green, sustainable, easily accessible.
No, I completely agree. I think they're ticking a lot of the right boxes for entering India. This is the way India wants the EV game played. They're also now localizing, local manufacturing. That's another thing that India is quite keen on. We want to be making in India more, and VinFast is putting their money where their mouth is and making that commitment. So I think they're picking up a lot of these boxes that will help them succeed here. And they may be a relatively new entrant to the Indian EV space, but I don't think there's a lot of catching up that they have to do. I think they've got really strong fundamentals in place and are poised to make a very solid entrance.
Of course, and speaking of that scalability, they have their plant right here at Thoothukudi in Tamil Nadu, 400 acres. And with such a massive production lineup, I think they can even scale up when the need arises. So that's something really good.
Absolutely. So I think it's been a really interesting first edition of Autocar Spotlight. I'm looking forward to future editions. We've delved into quite a lot of information today. And now comes the moment where we find out how much attention you've really been paying. It's quiz time. You're going to have 4 questions pop up on your screen. So leave your answers down in the comments and you stand a chance to win some really cool VinFast merch. The 4 questions are:
where did India get the first look of the entire range of VinFast cars? Which VinFast car models are slated to be launched first in India? Where in India is VinFast's manufacturing plant located? Name the parent company of VinFast.
So there you have it, guys. Leave your answers down in the comments. Also tell us what you think of VinFast's impending entry into the Indian market. Are you excited? What are you excited about? We'd love to hear. We are now signing off on the first edition of Autocar Spotlight. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the Autocar India YouTube channel so you're the first to know when our new content drops.